Have you ever seen someone like stranded on the side of the road with the hood of their car popped open?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And there is always, without fail, that one bystander standing like 50 feet away yelling, "It's the alternator. I can hear it from here."
Right. The classic armchair mechanic.
Yeah.
Just so confident, so loud, and diagnosing a highly complex machine from across a 4-lane highway without ever actually touching a wrench.
Exactly. But what happens when that exact same armchair mechanic dynamic is applied not to a broken down sedan, but to the highest office in the land?
That is exactly what we're getting into today.
Yeah, because today, for you listening, we are taking a deep dive into a highly charged YouTube video transcript. It's from a channel called Midas Touch. And the creator of this video aggressively argues for invoking the 25th Amendment against Donald Trump, claiming he's experiencing severe health and cognitive decline.
Right, but before we go a single step further, we really need to draw a very firm line in the sand for you, the listener.
Yes, crucial disclaimer time.
Absolutely crucial. This source material is fiercely partisan. I mean, it is a politically charged argument designed to persuade, and neither of us are taking sides today. We are not doctors, we are not diagnosing anyone, and we are certainly not endorsing the views in this video.
Right. Our sole purpose in this deep dive is just to unpack the arguments, the rhetorical strategies, and the claims exactly as the original source presents them.
Yeah, we are basically mapping out the anatomy of a political attack.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the source doesn't just make broad, sweeping generalizations about age or fitness to justify, pulling that emergency brake.
No, they get highly specific.
Right. It attempts to connect very specific physical observations directly to international military crises.
And to really understand the anatomy of this specific attack, we have to talk about what the 25th Amendment actually is. Because the video kind of just assumes you already know the mechanics of it.
Right. It throws the term around a lot.
Yeah, and specifically, we're talking about Section 4 of the amendment, which is the constitutional failsafe for an incapacitated president. But the key here is that it's not a mechanism for voters or for Congress to use.
Oh, interesting. So who actually pulls the lever?
Section 4 requires the vice president and a majority of the principal officers of the executive departments, meaning the cabinet, to officially declare the president unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office.
Wow. Okay. So it's literally an emergency brake that has to be pulled from the inside of the car.
Exactly, from the inside. And that internal dynamic is really crucial to keep in mind for later in this discussion.
I'll definitely keep a pin in that. But looking at the start of the video's argument, what strikes me here is the hyperfixation on the physical.
Oh, it's intense.
Yeah, the creator isn't just analyzing policy decisions. They're acting like a medical examiner. I mean, they point to what they describe as a droopy face, discolored hands, and rashes appearing on his neck.
Right. They also note an alleged inability to walk in straight lines.
And a profound difficulty formulating complete sentences. They don't just make one claim, They stacked up this massive list of physical and cognitive evidence to build a medical narrative.
Because the creator knows that simply pointing out a politician looks tired or, stumbles over their words isn't enough to justify the constitutional nuclear option of the 25th Amendment.
Right. They have to build a bridge from those physical tics to global catastrophe.
Exactly. They are curating visual and auditory cues to paint a picture of rapid deterioration. And they rely heavily on video editing techniques to kind of force the viewer to see things their way.
Yeah, the editing is really aggressive.
It is. The transcript highlights a specific moment from a White House Women's Month speech where Trump was touting job creation, and he attempts to say the number 300,000 jobs.
And he stumbles on the number.
Yeah.
Right.
He says 300 and then catches himself. But the video doesn't just play the clip and move on.
No, the creator takes that split-second audio of him saying 300 and artificially loops it over and over.
Which is such a fascinating piece of psychological manipulation.
How so?
Well, when you take a standard public speaking gaffe like losing your place on a teleprompter or just getting tongue-tied, and you loop it 5 times in a row, you completely strip away the context of the speech.
Oh, I see.
Human brains are wired to find patterns. So by forcing the viewer to hyperfixate on that repeated verbal stumble, the editor transforms an ordinary mistake into something that sounds like a haunting neurological glitch.
And the creator literally follows up that looped audio by saying, "I've known people who have suffered serious strokes and who have dementia, In my opinion, this is a sign of that.
Right. They are using editing tricks to justify a serious medical diagnosis.
It's wild. The video also leans heavily into his everyday interactions with staff to prove this point. Like, there's a moment where he praises Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary.
Right. He said she's doing a fantastic job and that she keeps me straight.
Which in almost any other context is just a totally common colloquialism for an assistant or staffer who, manages a busy schedule.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone says that about their admins.
But the video frames it as a literal admission of medical dependency. The source argues he's treating her like an actual caretaker.
It's a huge leap.
And it also brings up a clip where Trump is praising Kellyanne Conway, admiring how she fights with the media. The video's creator insists this isn't just reminiscing. They claim it's empirical proof he mistakenly believes Conway still works for him.
Because everything is curated and recontextualized to support this central thesis of cognitive detachment.
This is where I really have to push back on the methodology the creator is using, because as a listener, you have to ask yourself how reliable this actually is.
Right.
It's like trying to diagnose a car's engine problem just by listening to it idle on TV. You can't see the dashboard, you can't plug in a diagnostic tool, but you're just confidently declaring the transmission is blown.
That's a great way to put it.
How does the video justify jumping from a looped verbal stumble to concluding an absolute inability to govern?
Well, they bridge that gap by violently raising the stakes.
Oh, okay.
The creator understands that medical grievances are debatable, right? People can argue about a stumble. So they don't linger on the discolored hands or the verbal stumbles for long. They pivot sharply to tie these alleged cognitive issues to high-stakes military actions. Specifically, what the video describes as an unlawful, disastrous new war with Iran.
So they are essentially arguing it's not just that he's unwell, it's that he's unwell and his finger is on the trigger of the military.
Exactly. That shifts the narrative from a personal health critique to an urgent global security warning.
That makes sense.
And to legitimize this massive leap, the video strategically imports authority. They use quotes from established military and political figures to validate their premise.
Yeah, the transcript pulls in Democratic Senator Murphy, speaking on Capitol Hill. Murphy calls the situation the most incompetent, incoherent war America has fought in the last 100 years.
That's a strong quote.
It is. And then he delivers the line that the video basically treats as its holy grail. Murphy claims he has great sympathy for the military leaders because they are taking directions from a senile old man who is losing his mind.
What's fascinating here is how the source layers these authoritative voices.
What do you mean by layering?
Well, a Democratic senator calling a Republican president senile could be easily dismissed by a viewer as just standard partisan bickering, right?
Yeah, that's just Tuesday in Washington.
Exactly. So the creator brings in a second voice, retired Major General Paul Eaton. And Eaton explicitly uses the word dementia, saying a malignant narcissist is drifting into a state of dementia that is difficult to manage.
Wow. So the creator is using a credentialed military general to validate a medical diagnosis.
Yes, and Eaton goes into terrifying detail about the logistics of this Iran conflict to underline the sheer scale of the alleged incompetence.
Right, he really forces the viewer to confront the reality of invading Iran.
He points out we're talking about a country of 93 million people. It is physically larger than the state of Texas.
He also emphasizes that Persians have a history of extraordinary bravery in combat and cultural pride. Like he explicitly says, we're not talking Iraq.
Yeah, he warns that given the massive logistics of ground warfare in a country that size, failing to plan makes this look like Iraq 2.0, but exponentially bigger and more problematic.
That is terrifying phrasing.
It is. And the source uses Eaton's grave military analysis to make a causal argument. They're saying the administration has no viable war plan because the person at the top is cognitively incapable of formulating one.
And to hammer home that specific point about military incoherence, the video brings up a wildly specific real-world anecdote. It cites a radio interview Trump gave to Fox's Brian Kilmeade.
Oh, right, the radio interview.
According to the transcript, Trump tells ships in the Middle East to show some guts and sail right through the Strait of Hormuz.
And the video makes sure to point out the mispronunciation of Hormuz. Right? Again, adding to that pile of cognitive evidence.
Exactly. But the rhetoric in that interview is incredibly combative. He says, there's nothing to be afraid of. They have no navy. We sunk all their ships. Do it. Go through it.
But the reality on the ground is totally different.
Yeah. The video juxtaposes that radio bravado with its own claim that, in reality, cargo and fuel ships are actively being blown up in that exact strait.
So the creator's basically asking the audience,
Yeah.
are you out of your mind?
Exactly. The argument they are constructing is that the commander-in-chief's rhetoric is completely divorced from the factual reality on the ground.
So if you look at this structure, the creator's building a funnel. They started with physical symptoms, moved to the global military stage to show the terrifying stakes, and now they need to prove that this detachment is a constant state of being.
Because we don't have recordings of his private military commands.
Right.
Right.
So the source attempts to prove his detachment by heavily analyzing his unscripted public speeches. The logic is, if his public rhetoric is erratic and impossible to follow, his private military commands must be too.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the video dives incredibly deep into these rhetorical tangents to prove that point. Let's go back to that Women's Month speech at the White House.
The one with the looped audio.
Yeah, that same speech. The source highlights a moment where Trump basically admits he doesn't prepare for speeches. He says, I didn't read. I can't prep. If I prepare my speeches, I won't have time to get things done.
And the video frames that not as a boast about being a busy executive, but as an admission of being utterly distracted and incapable of focus.
He even says, I didn't know who the hell I was speaking to, because he walked into the room and was immediately distracted by a blonde woman in the audience.
Right, he just starts talking about her bobsledding.
Yeah.
It turns out she's Kaylee, a 6-time Olympic medalist.
Yeah, the video includes this specific tangent to show a leader who cannot stay on topic for even a few minutes.
It's all about showing that lack of focus.
It actually reminds me of another anecdote the video pulls up, the beautiful clean coal moment.
Oh, that one is bizarre.
It really is. In a speech, Trump goes on this bizarre detour saying he isn't allowed to just say the word coal anymore. He says it needs a PR job, so it always has to be preceded by the words, beautiful clean coal. He says, okay, we're cleaning it up very good, all right?
The creator is using these moments to show a mind getting entirely bogged down in its own rhetorical rules.
Ow.
Like he's losing the actual substance of whatever policy he was supposed to be discussing.
Yes. It's like a brand manager insisting on a very specific corporate slogan during a casual conversation, even when it completely derails the natural flow of the sentence.
That's a perfect analogy.
The source highlights several of these rhetorical detours to paint a picture of total detachment. There's another moment where he complains he's going to get canceled for calling the women in the audience beautiful.
Right. He says it's usually the termination of a political career to say a woman is beautiful, but he's going to do it anyway.
And then he summarizes his feelings for the entirety of Women's Month by just saying, women are the whole deal.
And the video creator literally pauses the clip at that moment to ask the audience, what does that mean? You're the whole deal.
So the source is weaponizing the vagueness of his language.
Precisely. They're arguing that these aren't just the quirks of a guy who likes to riff off script.
They're a symptom.
Yes. They are framing these vague, rambling statements as the rhetorical symptoms of a declining mind desperately trying to fill dead air because the teleprompter was turned off.
Okay, so we've gone from the global stage with Iran down to the public stage with these unscripted speeches. But the source then takes us behind closed doors.
Internal stuff.
Yeah, it zooms in on these bizarre internal anecdotes to cement this narrative of an administration completely off the rails. And this brings us to what might be the strangest detail in the entire source material.
The shoe story.
The shoe story. Please explain this one.
Okay, according to the video, Trump has this ongoing obsession where he goes around the office looking at his cabinet members and staff, and he guesses their shoe size.
He guesses their shoe size.
Yes. And then, whether his guess is right or wrong, he allegedly buys them a pair of Florsheim shoes in the size he guessed, and then forces them to wear these ill-fitting shoes around the office.
I mean, the video's creator is audibly baffled by this. They speculate wildly like, is it Freudian? Is it a fetish? But they ultimately label it as utterly deranged.
It is definitely an odd detail to include.
Right. Now, as a listener trying to follow the logic of this video, you have to ask, why include this bizarre story?
That's the real question.
Does the creator just want to paint a picture of an eccentric, difficult boss? Or does the source genuinely believe that a fixation on staff members' shoe sizes is empirical proof of cognitive decline?
Well, think back to the very beginning of our conversation. How does the 25th Amendment actually get invoked?
The vice president and a majority of the cabinet.
The cabinet. The very people who are constitutionally required to pull the emergency brake are the ones allegedly being forced to walk around the West Wing in ill-fitting Florsheim shoes just to appease the president's bizarre whims.
Oh, wow.
By including this specific story, the creator is delivering a massive underlying argument. The 25th Amendment mechanism is compromised.
Because they're too submissive.
Exactly. If he is psychologically dominating and humiliating his own cabinet members over something as trivial as footwear, how can the American public trust those same cabinet members to stand up and strip him of his presidential power?
Wow. It's character assassination by juxtaposition, but it also dismantles the very fail-safe the video is demanding.
It's a very layered argument.
The creator is basically saying he needs to be removed by his cabinet, but look at how he treats his cabinet. They'll never do it.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture the video is trying to paint, we see how the source constantly contrasts bizarre internal behavior and boastful fictions with a total lack of empathy for actual real-world issues.
Like the economic claims.
Yes. The video points out a speech where Trump claims the U.S. took in $18 trillion plus in 11 months due to tariffs.
Which is an astronomical number.
Right. The creator vehemently argues the economy is horrible and questions where this imaginary $18 trillion is even coming from.
And they contrast that boast with his reaction to real tragedies. The video highlights two domestic terror incidents that occurred. One at a Michigan synagogue and another at Old Dominion.
Yes.
The video shows Trump's response to the audience at the White House regarding the synagogue attack. And the quote the video focuses on is, "It's a terrible thing, but it goes on."
The video leans heavily into the dismissiveness of that phrasing. The creator repeats it like it's a terrible thing, but I guess it just goes on.
Wow.
They're arguing that he has the mental capacity to invent $18 trillion in fictional tariff revenue to stroke his own ego, but cannot muster a coherent, empathetic response to domestic terrorism.
So they're painting a picture of a mind that prefers comfortable fictions to uncomfortable realities.
Precisely.
The source even throws in a side tangent attacking his military record to further undermine his authority as commander-in-chief.
The bone spurs.
Yeah. The video criticizes him for posting photos from his time at a high school military academy. The creator aggressively claims he was just sent there by his father, Fred, and that Trump actually dodged the Vietnam draft 5 times using bone spurs.
Because every single anecdote, from the looped audio clips to the draft-dodging claims, serves the singular goal of the video, delegitimization.
Right.
They're attacking his physical health, his cognitive state, his military strategy, his public speaking, his office behavior, and his historical military record all at once to build an overwhelming, inescapable conclusion for the viewer.
So what does this all mean? When you step back and look at the whole transcript, the MeidasTouch video presents a highly curated, rapidly edited stack of anecdotes.
It's a mountain of claims.
Yeah, and they range from the absurd, like dominating the cabinet with shoe size obsessions, to the gravest of stakes, like military commands in the Strait of Hormuz.
They cover all the bases.
The creator deliberately walks the viewer down a funnel, proving physical decay, showing the global consequences, highlighting the rhetorical incoherence, and finally proving that the internal fail-safes are compromised.
It is a brilliantly constructed narrative, even if it is entirely partisan.
And we must remind you, the listener, as we wrap up today, that our purpose here was simply to map out the anatomy of the specific political argument.
Yes, very important to reiterate.
These claims, the medical diagnoses, and the viewpoints belong entirely to the source channel. We are not endorsing them as facts, but examining how the argument was built and the psychological mechanics used to persuade its audience.
And this raises an important question, one that extends far beyond this single video.
What's that?
If modern political commentary is increasingly focused on crowdsourcing medical diagnoses from afar using looped speech gaffes and observed physical pics, how does that change the way we evaluate actual policy?
That's a great point.
Does the constant, hyper-focused hunt for physical decline actually distract us from having meaningful, rigorous debates about the substance of the political actions themselves?
Yeah, are we so busy yelling about the alternator from 50 feet away that we aren't even looking at where the car's actually driving?
Exactly.
Something to think about next time you see a looping video clip on your feed trying to diagnose a politician. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.